Welcome to the latest edition of the Google for Business podcast with me, Martin Shervington. Paul Hollywood, who are you, what do you do?
Okay, so I am the product director here at Starship, and my main focus at the moment is VTime. And VTime is our brand new sociable virtual reality network that we have running on mobile at the moment. And we're at the beginning of not only the life cycle of the technology, but also the journey of VTime. So yeah, it's a very exciting place to be at the moment.
It is exciting, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
So thanks for making the time. So big thanks to the team for freeing you up. What you've created is a leap. All right, so this is why I wanted to connect with you. It's a leap. People aren't going to be able to imagine what you've created until they experience it, because the interface is, in my opinion, what it needs to be. It's amazing. So that's why I wanted to connect with you, because it's like, wow, this is not what I expected a virtuality social network to be. It seems that you've taken it years ahead. So it's a brilliant experience. But should we talk about what's going on in VR to start with, and then we come specifically to what you've done?
Okay. So my journey in virtual reality actually started in 1994. So my background is in video game development, where I've been making video games for 26 years. And in the 90s, the studio that I worked with Martin Kenwright, who I'm working with now, this is our third studio, was called Digital Image Design. And we specialised in the mid-90s in military spec flight simulators on PCs. These simulations were so accurate, we had NATO using them as actual pilot training tools. And we got hold of one of the first revolutions of virtual reality hardware. It was the VFX1 headset, and it was the promise was there at that time. The hardware wasn't. So it was a very uncomfortable experience, a very uncomfortable piece of hardware, very expensive, and it just didn't live up to the potential of what virtual reality can be and what the latest technology, present technology, is allowing us to do. So when we set up Starship, which was, it's coming up to nearly 3 years in the summer, we started developing mobile technology, and we looked at a couple of IPs that we developed. One was called Playable Superheroes, which is a kids game on touch devices. And then we also created a cooking simulation called Cybercook. And while we were developing this mobile technology and creating our production pipelines, our art pipelines, and our sort of getting back into the industry, because we'd had a few years out since the sale of Evilly Studios, we got introduced to Oculus, and Oculus obviously at that point had just released the DK2 headset, the developer kit number 2. So we got one of those in the studio, and we started looking at it. We were very impressed at where that technology was, and we ported the products we were working on into the DK2, which was quite easy for us because we're a Unity-based developer. And
don't get too geeky.
Not too geeky. But Unity is our development engine. We're super users of Unity. We write a lot of our own code and our own systems, but Unity as a development accelerator is excellent. It's also platform agnostic, so we can develop our code base and then we can execute multiple versions on different platforms. So we tried our software running on virtual reality. We found that the cooking simulator specifically lent itself very well to a conversion, and we launched our first modern virtual reality product a year ago this month, and that was Cybercook Taster, and that was out on Gear VR. It's one of the first titles on mobile VR. And we got really interested, and it was shortly after then that we pivoted our studio development solely into virtual reality, and we started to look at what we saw as the problems with virtual reality. So we saw it as very, very interesting, very immersive. The whole thing about presence and believing you're in that virtual environment is very interesting psychologically. But we thought, this is very insular. This is very very solo pursuit, and you'd be in a virtual environment, and you'd be sort of saying, somebody would be with you in the same room, you'd be, oh, you can see this, you'd be seeing that there, and you'd be like, I can't see what you're looking at. If we could be in the same virtual space, then that is more compelling. And that was our remit for VTime as it became. We wanted to create a connected virtual experience where you could go in to the same environment and share the wow of being in VR. And we put together a couple of early prototypes over the summer. We then took those prototypes to California. We showed them to major platform holders, and they loved it. So we knew we were onto something, and we then worked really, really hard. We're all industry veterans in the studio, so we developed our software, our skill set. But I created a number of very harsh design parameters for VTime. So one of them, specifically, as you just mentioned, was the design interface.
Yeah.
So being mindful of a platform agnostic product, at the moment we're out on Gear VR. We'll be coming out on Google Cardboard very shortly. We're then looking also at developing tethered headset support, such as Sony Virtual Reality, and also the PC-based headsets, the Vive and the Rift that are coming out. So taking the design of the input, we wanted it to be completely controller-free. So we produced a very intuitive look at gaze control interface that will work on any platform. So we don't put ourselves in a controller cul-de-sac, if you know what I mean.
I'm going to interrupt you for two things for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to be dumb, right?
Okay.
And hopefully help the people listening. Doesn't take much for me to be done. So the first thing is, just so everyone knows, by the time you listen to this, Google Cardboard, you may well be able to try VTime. So that's the thing. So this is the front end of 2016.
That's
so everyone
right.
knows. So it may well be already there. So just go and check it out. So go to vtime.com and you'll probably see it there. But
VTime.net.
VTime.net. Very important. VTime.net. But secondly, you were talking about the gaze. Let me just give my personal experience, and then you can talk about how you did it. One of the things that I found is, firstly, when you arrive in a space in VTime, which is an agora, is what they call it, isn't it? Which is a Greek open space, and it's impressive, and it's clean, and it's beautiful. But what then happens is there's a ball. Well, I don't know if this is the exact user thing, but the ball appears when you tilt your head, and the menu comes off it. You don't have to touch anything, which is really what you're saying. And by staring at just moving your head actually to a certain point, a timer, and it's well timed, you've got everything just well done, is after a couple of seconds, it opens up that menu and you move and you select just using your gaze, which is what you were saying. So from a user point of view, and the reason I reached out to you guys, and I'll probably say this many times, there were so many things I just went, wow, that works, man. That works so well. Yeah. And so you've obviously, you've been spending time testing with a lot of users, I guess, and the whole team, to find out how long it should be and whether people find it intuitive, which it is.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take a step back to the Cybercook Taster product that I mentioned, which is our first product, we had that mechanism in there. That was like our sort of little test bed to see, it was basically a context-sensitive environment where you could look at objects, and those objects then would have a function or an action point to them. And we found that very easy to use, very easy to explain, and very obvious to for many different demographic of users to be able to grasp the concept and then use it without any problems. So we then took that into VTime, that VR knowledge, which is quite a key thing. Where we are with virtual reality is the start of the learning curve, and a lot of the initial titles I saw coming out on mobile VR and on tethered VR were not necessarily a VR product. They were a iteration of a standard product, maybe a first-person shooter or a puzzle game or something that already exists in a digital entertainment platform in a different interface. In essence, a 2D flat screen, whether that be a console or a touch screen. But it's taken a while now to actually see true VR products been designed and coming out into the marketplace. And we believe with VTime, we have created a bespoke virtual reality product in terms of the interface, and the experiential content that we have within there.
Yeah, and one of the big things is a social network. And that's my interest, because that's where a lot of people listening as well will know me from, is from social media. And as soon as I saw that the ability to connect and to add friends, and we've got people's names there, it's like, this feels like a real way of meeting people in those spaces. And we can talk more about the spaces as well. But that's something which I mentioned, Oculus Social Alpha, and we know it's going to get linked up with Facebook eventually. It's not there yet. And there's other platforms as well I haven't had access to yet. You're the one that I looked at and went, they've done it. Yeah. They've gone and done it, and it's amazing. But until people experience it, they won't realise. So, do you go in and connect with a few people and hear what their first impression is?
Absolutely. We're very active within the community. At this point of the life cycle, it's early adopters, it's enthusiasts, it's people that we want to engage with to be evangelists for VTime. So we spend time chatting, having the feedback. And when we launched VTime on the 31st of December globally, we had an early access version of the product. And that early access version had a lot of messages in there. So please get in touch. There's a feedback loop within the product. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, tell us what you'd like to see. And we want to create a product for the users. I mean, we have many ideas and wants and desires that we'd like to put in, but there's no point doing and creating something that's not going to have genuine use and value for the people using it. So that feedback loop is very important and still in there. We also hold regular meetups with the development team in VTime, and we call these forums. So we have a forum and we have a set time, and we chat to people from all over the world, and they, get involved, and they're evangelists for us, and they post on Reddit and they post on Twitter and Facebook,
spreading the word, man.
And spreading the word and spreading the thought. Yeah, we have created. We like to call it a sociable network, not necessarily a social network. Yeah. We believe that the subtle difference is a social network is something that has happened. You're reporting on something. You're creating an editorial for something that has happened that you want to talk about or portray. And it's not a social network. VTime is the here and now. It's the present. It's been sociable, joining people in at that moment in time and having a conversation. And I'd just like to talk a little bit about that conversation, because this is, for me, is a really interesting part that. We wanted to create a communication tool, and what I found with the presence of VR, so that the presence, to explain to people, is where you suspend your belief. You go, right, I'm actually in this virtual environment, and when you're joined with somebody else and you have an avatar for that person, because you believe you're there, you believe they're there, and then that gives you this humanized connection that you don't get. So we're talking now using a video conferencing software. Now, I know we're having a conversation, but it's once removed, because I'm looking through a window, a portal into where you are, and vice versa. And if we were having this conversation in VTime, we would feel we were in the same place. And you have that, then you have the subtleties and the little nuances of human conversation. Yeah. And that's really interesting. What we've created there is something that has evolved from the system that we created.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm just going to show people just this one. I mean, this is the Gear VR. That's how I came across it. So after you launched, I picked that up when I was in California. And you mentioned we've got cardboard, so people are going to have access to this very, very soon. But we've got two things. One, we've got the setting. I'm going to sound like it's Timothy Leary here now, which is set in the set. But you've got the setting, which is like the environment. So you could be on the edge of a cliff. You could be on a beach. You've got the Arctic one that's just launched, I think, just this week. You've got outer space. You've got the Agora. You've got campfire. You've got a cave with a fire in. I can't remember. You have to tell me all the others. But you can tell I've been around a little bit. And Liverpool, you can go and visit Liverpool, everybody. And inside and outside the cathedral, you've got all of these places. So people have to imagine they're there. They're sat, and then they're next to people that are also there and that are sat. And the piece I wanted to make is that when you turn your head, and you've got the headset on, and you've got the camera in the head, you've got the phone in the headset, it looks at the person. But also, you've got some fancy algorithm. I use that word as if I know what it really means. But you've got something going on that means that the hands move and that the mouth moves and that there's some matching. You talk about presence, which is going to be the word of the year, but the person sees the other person as a dynamic communicating body within those settings and those spaces, don't they? That's really what's going on. That's what the difference is that it's believable.
Yeah. So the couple of things you picked up on there are very true, and they really help with that connected communication. So we transmit the rotational position of the head. So as you say, I'll be in a session, I could look that way and I would get eye contact with the other avatar and they would see me looking at them. Also, if I'm in the environment and say, hey, have you seen the snake on the floor down there?
Yeah, which there is in the campfire one, yeah.
So you can see the head move and you can point to it. And again, when you're in the 360 immediate photographs, you can look and you can have this responsive conversation by the head movement. We also take the microphone voice input and take that volume and drive a couple of animations. One is the mouth, so you get a pseudo lip sync going on, and also we drive a gesticulating animation, which is what we do. I mean, I'm waving my hands around now because out of shot, and this again helps with that communication, physical communication part, which is very unique. The excuse me, sorry. So these sums of these parts really do help to make you attach an emotive attachment to that avatar. The avatars themselves are customizable, so you may have found that yourself. You can go into the intuitive menu system. You can choose a shell that suits you, a skin tone, a hairstyle, clothing, which is a system that we'll be constantly improving throughout the life cycle of VTime. And you can then create a representation of yourself or not, if you wish to be incognito. And that, again, that helps. That's an extension of your online your online virtual reality presence. So yeah, it's interesting. There's lots of interesting psychological things going on within these sessions, and we also play about with those emotive responses within the environment yourself. So you mentioned a couple of environments are a little bit more exciting. So been on the bivouac on El Capitan, dangling a few thousand feet up in the air.
My favourite's the river. I didn't mention that, but I love the river.
Oh yeah, the river, and the also the audio. I don't know if you've noticed. We've got a true 3D spatial stereo.
So you got stuff going past you.
Soundscape.
Yeah. I know, it's amazing.
The inputs into the experience are twofold. So you have the optical input from what you're seeing off the screen, and then you have the audio input. Now, the audio input is 50% of the experience. It adds to it. So putting in these spatial sounds that move around, that catch you, you can hear the bird move, or you can hear a wolf cry in the river, and they draw your attention to them. That is also very important. Also, the spatial audio comes from the voice. So I'm in a session with people, and I hear somebody talk to my left in the virtual world. The voice is coming from the virtual mouth. Again, it draws your attention, which is an interesting tool to use because
it's about real life.
You have to draw people to an attention point. Because you can look anywhere, you can look all around, but you want them to be focused on the action or on the communication.
So at the moment, there's 4 seats generally. We're still at that point. There's 4 seats. So if you imagine everybody, you sat kind of in a square or alongside each other. So you know where you are. Is the point. You're not kind of like one person off in the woods and one person there. You don't wander around the house. You sat down, you stood up, but you're in situ and you move around with your head. Let's talk about the future, because I'm very excited about certain things. I don't know where you're going with the trajectory, but I run a training academy. I run a coaching academy. So I'm looking and going, wouldn't it be great when everyone's got cardboard to take my crew and to have them there, and let's do the first sessions in VR. So are you planning to open up so that there'll be more spaces? Are you looking at, what can you tell me?
Well, what I can tell you is we have an extensive roadmap. VTime Early Access came out before Christmas. We're now out of Early Access. We've stress tested in the wild. We've got tens of thousands of users. We're downloaded in over 120 different countries worldwide. So the hard bit is the communication part, which we've now nailed. The roadmap for this next year is to amend and complement VTime with more content, more features, more platforms. So picking up on the platforms first, you'll be able to join in irrespective of your platform into the same VTime session. I could be on my Gear VR, you could be on Google Cardboard, we could be joined in by somebody on PlayStation VR, somebody on the Oculus Rift, and we're all in the same session. Obviously, on the higher-end graphics platforms, your visuals will be a bit shinier, there'll be PBR shaders, there'll be dynamic lighting, there'll be visual effects.
I'm nodding as if I know what they are, but
So it'll look prettier.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. That's my level.
In essence, it'll be the same experience, and that's a very important thing. That's something that VTime is unique in doing, is this cross-platform compatibility. The destinations that we have already built, that we're going to release in different moments over the roadmap, add to these little experiential experience things that we want to experiment with. So the Arctic came out last week. Now I just want to talk a little bit about this. A feature that we put into the Arctic, and that was breath. So I talked about the voice driving the mouth animation. So what we did was we put in a particle effect for cold breath coming out. So when you're sat not talking, you have a breathing animation, but then when you start to talk, you get more sort of like condensing breath coming out of your mouth in the Arctic. And that is really interesting. That for me is another interesting psychological trick because it made me feel cold. It made me like shiver a little bit, and we were testing it before we launched, and we're all sat in the studio just going and breathing out.
That's really interesting. So from a presence point of view, you're actually, and this is where we can kind of see where the trajectory is, and this is why I think you guys are so far along. Really, is that it tricks the mind. It makes you think you're there, makes you think you're with those people. So that's going to have a physiological effect.
Absolutely, and what we're going to do is the other features coming out. I can talk about one that we've mentioned previously, and that's the ability to share data. Now, I want to talk about data, and it's going to be initially photographs and then video, and not only 2D photographs but 360 spherical media that you've seen in the tour of Liverpool that we already have in VTime at the moment. And what happens there is, as a user, I can upload some images to our cloud backend, and we go into a session and I go, hey Martin, I've just come back from a trip over in Las Vegas for CES, and I've got some holiday photographs, do you want to see them? And we'll go into a bespoke environment with a screen, and I can load up my photographs and you can see my data. That data will be non-persistent. When you leave the session, you won't have that data, but it's a real talking point, it's a real sharing of life, social aspects, and then that will be complemented with video and 360 video in the roadmap. I just want to mention that VTime is a free product. It's available to everybody for free. The core of VTime will always be free. Obviously, as a business, we'll be looking to monetize it in other ways, but we won't be charging anybody money for VTime, so everybody can get in and enjoy it at any time.
Awesome. Okay, don't go anywhere because I've got somebody I want to introduce you to just after the call. Where can they find you? And particularly, where can they find? Let's get people sharing some stuff. The blog.
Okay, so if you go onto vtime.net, we have a community page on there where you can go in and you can post questions. You can join into different threads. We're also quite active on Reddit, obviously on Twitter and Facebook. It's a Facebook page as well. But the best way to talk to us, if you want to talk to us, is to get into VTime. Go on into our connection screen. So a little bit of how that works. You very easily, all you need is an email address. You load up VTime, you put your email address in, we send you an email, we ask you for your name and just your date of birth, because obviously we're mindful of our age restrictions, and then you have an account. When you have that account and you go back into VTime and you go to this connection screen, you can see everybody that's online who sets the profile to be random. So that means you open up to like a chat roulette. So you set yourself to random, you can find me, you can search for me, and then you can friend request me. And then whenever you have a friend request, then you can come in and you can talk to me or other people in the development team. And we're very happy to spend time with people and show them around VTime and get people excited. And that's the best way. But obviously, please get as many people as you can into VTime. you've mentioned it before, Martin. It's difficult to explain with words.
Yeah, people are going to have to try this.
You have to go in, yeah. It's a show and tell. Absolutely.
It's awesome. That's Paul Hollywood, when you look for him in VTime. Thanks so much, Paul. Thanks to everybody in the team. You've created an absolutely incredible product. So amazing interface, and I look forward to seeing where it goes next. So,
okay, thank you for your time and your enthusiasm. Cheers, Martin.
That, my googly lovers, was the Google for Business podcast. I'm Martin Shermanton, and I look forward to you listening in next time. Until then.